So you're worried that you're paying too much for Magic the Gathering's products right now? You're wondering if these sets are going to have value in the future if you ever try to resell them? Well, in today's video, we're going to take a look at what it takes for these sets to have value and have a future on the secondary market. Hi everyone and welcome back. MTG Moxman here, and hey, thanks a lot for hanging out with me in this nacho cheese universe that we like to call YouTube. Glad to have you all here today for this great discussion. Let's break this down today. Let's look what it takes to make a great set, to make great singles last in the secondary market. Now, if you're new to the channel, you kind of know my position on a lot of these things because you can look in the background and tell that I kind of believe that there's going to be value in the secondary market on a lot of cards going forward, and I do invest heavily in reserve list cards. But what happens if you don't like the reserve list? What happens if you don't care about those cards and you're thinking about products of today? If you're thinking about the Brothers War, Dominaria United, Kamigawa, Neon Dynasty, or how about a little Streets of New Capenna, or maybe one of the specialty products like Collectors, Double Masters 2022, going on forever. There's a lot to cover when we start looking at sets like this and how the value can be determined. Which cards will stand out? That's what you're trying to take a look at to see if there's any cards in a set that will make that singles market be really hot for that card later, to make that sealed product be collectible and desirable to an investment base or collectors later on who might want to crack one open hoping to get something cool. There's a lot to break into when we're talking about this kind of topic, but I'm going to try to break this down to small segments so we can have some fun with it and play a little devil's advocate on the way. And hey, if you think you know better than me, good for you. Put that in the comment sections too. Prove me wrong. All right, guys, let's take a look at this. Supply and demand when dealing with Wizards of the Coast products is kind of like a shell game. We actually don't know how many sealed products Wizard produces on any of their products. We actually don't know. There have been some people, even myself, who've tried to break down the numbers, at least for collector boxes, to try to figure out a rough estimate of how much Wizards of the Coast produces. And some YouTubers will purposely downplay how many may have been produced to make sure there seems to be a forced scarcity in a sealed product. But no one truly knows. When I'm taking a look at a sealed product and I see the supply and demand side issue of that, I say, how much supply do I think is out there versus the demand for that product? If you were looking at Dominaria back in 2018, it was a popular product, people enjoyed it, but it got ended early, which means there will be a supply and demand issue if it's a popular product. And guess what? It turned out it was, and the boxes started to spike in price, and that continues to this day. But a supply and demand issue on another product like Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate, as soon as that product started out, it was already starting to fall off and people didn't believe the value was really there, in particular for the collector boxes. Players weren't willing to risk opening that product and spending that money when the returns seemed so low. Now, when we're jumping to the singles side of that market, you realize that the supply and demand issue is a little bit different. If a product is popular and a lot of people open the boxes, that puts a good supply of cards into the secondary market, making the prices more affordable. So when Dominaria came out, other than a couple of cards like Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, Karn Sign of Urza stayed up for a while, but eventually they all went down really low, making them quite affordable. And a well-constructed set like that means a lot of players are enjoying it and they are opening the boxes. When you go ahead though and look at another set that was not well received, like Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate, people didn't open that product as much after 30 days. The money had moved on, and the singles became very expensive for the few good cards that are inside that set. Look at the Ancient Dragons and look how those prices hold, and that's because not enough supply was fed into the secondary market. So when you're looking for the supply and demand issue, this is a good place to start. Another area players like to use when determining the value of a Magic the Gathering product is the price point of entry. How much it costs you to get into that product or that single. Now on the product side, people love to get a good deal on a sealed box. They'll say things are on sale, this is awesome, but that usually leads back to the supply and demand. The supply is too great, the demand is too low, and you'll be tying your money up into an asset for a very long period of time without any gains or the potential of any gains because many other people are doing the exact same thing. If there was no demand for that product, that means people are sitting on it. They're holding it, they're keeping it sealed, hoping in the future that it will have value. And this is not always correct. Because in the history of Magic the Gathering, we've been able to look at sets that were unsuccessful, like Fallen Empires and Homelands, took over 25 years to finally start gaining in value, and they even have some low-end reserve list cards inside them. When you're looking at sets like Dragon's Maze, or maybe a Gatecrash type product, Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate, they will take a very long time, if ever, to accumulate in value. And there will be other people out there saying the age of these products, and as prices rise, inflation will carry those products forward. And they they can bring them up in price. And if new products become $200 and Dragon's Maze gets dragged up to $200, it means nothing. So don't be fooled by that, because just because a product says it's $200 because of inflation does not mean it's going to sell at $200. You're back to the supply and demand issue. There may be supply, but there may be no demand. So that product will still sit on a shelf. When determining value, the price point of entry for singles is a lot different than the sealed product. A singles card is based on its desirability inside of a particular format. And as long as that desirability is high, you will have supply and demand issues. The demand remains high because everyone wants to own that card. The supply is low because either the card is not available, it's rotated out, it's an older card. Either way, the price on that particular card stays high and will continue to stay high and maybe even rise further until a card comes along that succeeds it, becomes a better version of that card. A banning happens, which drives the card's value down, or that entire deck style or format style falls out of favor. Another area that can drive value into a product is going to be chase cards. When you're taking a look back in 2009 with Zendikar, they gave us priceless treasures. The chance to get your hands on a Mox, a dual land, an old school card. And they've continued that trend to this day with Dominaria United Lost Legends. But even Battle for Zendikar, we had the chance to get Expedition Full Art for the first time. The chase card can drive value into a sealed product. It adds a little bit of a gambler's premium on that product that makes some players really want to buy it. That's something to consider when looking at a sealed product. Now, when we're looking at the single side, for those cards that do get opened, like a Kaladesh Invention, like an Evocation, a lot of them do retain value, but it also comes down to the style of artwork, as well as the desirability of that card still. Is it being played somewhere? Because if it's being played somewhere and it has that style of artwork, it's going to be a lot higher premium than a card that's just cool looking, but nobody's using it anymore and it just sits in a binder. There may be an investor or a collector who wants to have it, but you really are doubling down on the value of a card if it's being actively played in the format for the card you're after. So if you're going to look for that value inside of a card, look for a card that may be a chase card, but it's being played currently in a format. You know, sometimes the value of a sealed product is tied to one card. It happens. Imagine we had Commander Legends 2020 and Jeweled Lotus never gets reprinted. Never. Imagine the supply and demand issue with a set that's now rotated out. People still want to get their hands on the Jeweled Lotus, but it's not anywhere else except for the box. So the box prices go up. They start accumulating in value. And the Jeweled Lotus will go up on the singles market because it's never been reprinted. This can and does happen. You can look for factors like that when determining the value of a product. Now, in closing on the video today, I showed you guys some of the value that can be determined by looking at different aspects. So when you're looking at Brothers War, Dominaria United, Streets of New Capenna, maybe Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, look at the cards you think have value. Look at the sealed product, the supply, the demand, how expensive these things are. Have they been on sale? Are they too cheap right now? Are they having fire sales? these are the areas you want to look at if you're going to hold on to any sealed product. On the single side, look to see which cards will be used in multiple formats. Is there chase cards inside those formats of different artworks? Does Ottawa Soaring City full art extended foil seem to draw a bit of a premium now? Imagine how it could be 3 or 4 years from now. What are the chances of cards like that being reprinted inside Wizards' time frame? Because it does take a long time for some of these singles cards to be reprinted with what Wizards is doing nowadays. I really hope everyone enjoyed the content today. I hope I gave you guys something to think about before you dive into a sealed product or a singles card trying to spec on something. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I really enjoyed sharing this all with you today. I'm looking forward to seeing your comments in the comments section. Remember, it's a great game, everyone. I'm looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And what would the end of a Moxman video be without a shout out to all the fantastic patrons who make videos like this possible each and every day? Thank you for being a patron of my channel. I know. You guys thought we were done as I slide around at the end of the video. I know it's a little slippery. I cleaned the floors today. So welcome back, you special people. You made it to the end of the video. I get to abuse you a bit and go on and rant a little bit. So all that stuff can be used to determine the value. And I use them a lot, okay, when I'm looking at different things. That's what I used for Mox Amber. I'm still using it for Biblioplex. I know that card's worthless right now, but one never knows. But don't forget the nostalgia on a set as well. How well was that set received? How much did people like that set? Then it's not always a supply and demand issue. If you have a good fuzzy feeling for that set and years later you have a good paying job and you go after a box like that, you see what I'm saying? It can drive things up without people even knowing at the time because they just had a good time at the pre-release and you're not thinking about that 12, that 13-year-old who went along with their mom and dad or went along with some friends and played, and now it's 10 years later. They've got a good income or a full-time job and they go after boxes that they remember. Everyone's got their time frame on when they thought things were cool. I find that interesting because I know I've done it in the past. Go after sets I think are like, I had fun there. I'm going to buy that box again. We don't. Some of us know that feeling. And on the single side, when it comes to nostalgia, the Brothers War, that will hold a lot of value for me because I'm remembering the storyline I grew up with, and that will determine some of the value in which I put on the set. But it may not be the cards within the set that have value because I don't know the print runs, I don't know the size of the sets, and I have a good history of tracking the cards and seeing where they go. So hopefully people can look at that all with a grain of salt and say, just because a card's $50 at pre-release doesn't mean it's going to hold $50 after 90 days, right? That's kind of like the rule of thumb we use. So very interesting stuff. I hope people enjoyed the video today. But thanks a lot for hanging out with me. Thanks for being here at the end as I slide on the floor. Do a little thing before I go cook dinner for the family. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the comments section, all right? Have an awesome day. Thanks for tuning in. And if you made it this very, very end part, the very, very end, I would like you guys to put in the comments section, Necronomicon. Because, we're in October. I'm going to make you spell a big word. Spell the big word.